The first time someone whispered that Alina's brilliance carried a hidden price, nobody believed it. Alina was known as the perfect child. Teachers praised her. Parents used her name to scold their own children. "Why can't you be like Alina?" they would say again and again. But beneath the shining praise and smiling photographs, there was a secret quietly growing like a shadow behind a bright light. Alina lived with her mother, Miriam, in a comfortable apartment above a lively street market. Miriam had waited 15 long years for a child. She had visited hospitals, prayed in churches, and even traveled to distant towns seeking answers. When Alina was finally born, Miriam cried with joy so deeply that neighbors thought a miracle had happened. From that day forward, Miriam swore that her daughter would never lose in life, not in beauty, not in wealth, and certainly not in intelligence. Miriam owned the most famous luxury hair store in the city. The shop stood at the corner of a bright avenue where people passed all day long. Inside, rows of shining hair extensions hung like waterfalls of silk, golden blonde, deep brown, midnight black. Women from far neighborhoods traveled across the city just to buy Miriam's products. Her store smelled of perfume, fresh packaging, and success. The business grew bigger each year. Miriam dressed in elegant clothes and carried herself like a queen of commerce. Yet her greatest pride was not the store. It was Alina. Every morning, Miriam carefully braided Alina's hair, dressed her in the finest school uniform, and drove her to one of the biggest schools in the city. "You must always shine brighter than everyone," Miriam often whispered with a smile that looked loving but strangely determined. The school Alina attended was known for producing the brightest students in the city. Tall buildings surrounded a wide courtyard where children gathered every morning before class. Teachers demanded excellence, and students competed fiercely for top grades. But none of them matched Alina. She answered every question with confidence. Her assignments were always perfect. Her name sat proudly at the top of the classroom ranking board every single term. Students admired her beauty and intelligence, while some secretly envied her. To many parents, Alina became the standard of success. Alina had a habit that made people trust her. Whenever a new student joined the class, she welcomed them warmly. She smiled gently and spoke kindly, making them feel comfortable in their new environment. Teachers praised her kindness and maturity. But there was something strange about those moments. The new students who accepted Alina's welcome gifts often began to struggle with their studies soon after. Their answers became slower. Their grades fell. Meanwhile, Alina's brilliance seemed to grow even stronger, shining brighter than before. Every afternoon after school, Alina returned home to Miriam's luxury hair store. There, behind the colorful displays and busy customers, mother and daughter shared quiet conversations. Sometimes Alina handed Miriam small notes with names written on them, students who had once been clever but were now fading behind her brilliance. Miriam would simply nod and continue working, arranging expensive hair bundles with careful hands. Their business was not just about beauty. Something deeper, something unseen, flowed through those shining products. One bright morning, the classroom door opened and a new student stepped inside. Her name was Kamara. She was tall, graceful, and carried herself with calm confidence. Her eyes were sharp and observant, and when the teacher asked a question during her very first lesson, Kamara answered correctly without hesitation. The classroom fell silent. For the first time in years, someone had matched Alina's intelligence. The teacher smiled widely. "Excellent answer, Kamara." Students turned their heads toward the new girl. Murmurs spread across the room. Alina felt something unfamiliar rising in her chest, a quiet fear she had never known before. For years she had worn the crown of the most brilliant student. But now another light had appeared beside hers, and it was just as bright. That afternoon, Alina returned home unusually quiet. Miriam noticed immediately. "What happened today?" Miriam asked while counting the day's sales. Alina hesitated before speaking. There is a new girl. Her name is Kamara. She answers questions quickly, just like me. Miriam's eyes narrowed slightly, though her voice remained calm. And what did you do? Alina gave a small smile. I will handle it tomorrow. The next day during lunch break, Alina approached Kamara with her usual gentle charm. Hi, I'm Alina, she said warmly. Welcome to our school. I brought you a small gift. She placed a beautifully wrapped box on the table. Many students nearby watched quietly. Everyone knew that receiving a gift from Alina meant joining the circle of her kindness. Kamara looked at the gift carefully but did not touch it. My mother told me something important, she said calmly. Alina tilted her head, still smiling. Kamara pushed the box gently back toward her. She said I should never accept gifts from strangers. The cafeteria became unusually quiet. No student had ever rejected one of Alina's gifts before. Alina kept her smile, but her eyes hardened for a brief moment before softening again. That's all right, she said sweetly. Maybe another time. But as she walked away, something inside her mind began spinning with restless thoughts. When Alina told Miriam what had happened, the older woman stopped arranging the display in her store. She refused. Miriam asked slowly. Yes. Miriam's expression changed slightly, as though she had just discovered an unexpected challenge. Then we must be careful, she murmured. Miriam's business success was not built on ordinary trade. Long ago she had discovered a mysterious practice that allowed her to exchange invisible things through gifts, luck, confidence, brilliance. It was a quiet transaction that few people ever noticed. Every gift she gave carried a hidden bargain. And each bargain helped Alina remain the brightest student in every room she entered. Kamara continued attending class with steady confidence. She answered questions clearly, solved complex problems quickly, and never sought attention. Yet attention followed her anyway. Students began gathering around her during study hours. Even teachers noticed her remarkable focus. Slowly, the balance of admiration in the classroom began shifting. For the first time in her life, Alina studied harder than ever before. She stayed awake during long afternoons solving difficult assignments. She revised every subject repeatedly. But Kamara still matched her. Sometimes Kamara even surpassed her. Parents began whispering again, but now the name they mentioned was different. Have you heard of the new girl? Kamara. She might even be smarter than Alina. Such whispers traveled through classrooms, corridors, and playgrounds like a quiet storm. And every whisper reached Alina's ears. One afternoon, Miriam locked the store earlier than usual. She looked at Alina carefully. If Kamara will not accept a gift, Miriam said slowly, then we must find another way. Alina's heart began beating faster. What way? She asked. Miriam smiled gently, but there was something deeper hiding inside that smile. Every mind, she said softly, has a door. At school the following week, Kamara continued her studies peacefully. She seemed unaware of the quiet tension growing around her. But Alina watched carefully. She observed Kamara's habits, her routines, the moments she relaxed and the moments she focused deeply. Alina was searching for that invisible door her mother had spoken about. One afternoon during a group project, Kamara paused while solving a difficult problem. It was the first time she had hesitated in class. Alina noticed immediately. A tiny crack had appeared in the wall of Kamara's brilliance. And cracks, Miriam had once said, were the beginning of opportunity. That day, as students packed their books and left the classroom, Alina watched Kamara carefully. Her smile returned, calm and charming as always. But deep inside her mind, a quiet plan had begun forming, one far more complicated than a simple gift. Because some trades did not require acceptance. Some trades only required access. The next afternoon during mathematics class, the teacher wrote a long problem on the board. it was the type of question that usually took the entire class several minutes to solve. The room became quiet as students lowered their heads and began calculating carefully. Kamara worked steadily as usual, but something unusual happened. For a brief moment, her mind felt cloudy. The numbers that were normally clear seemed to shift strangely. She paused, blinking slowly, trying to focus again. Across the room, Alina noticed the hesitation immediately, and a faint smile appeared on her lips. Kamara eventually solved the problem, but the answer took longer than usual. The teacher praised her effort, yet Kamara herself felt uneasy. She had never struggled with such questions before. After class, she sat alone for a moment thinking about it. Perhaps she was simply tired. Perhaps she had been studying too much. The thought passed through her mind quickly, but somewhere deep inside, a quiet warning began to stir. That evening, Alina sat beside Miriam in the luxury hair store. The shop buzzed with customers, laughter, and the soft rustle of silky hair bundles being opened and examined. Did anything change? Miriam asked quietly while pretending to arrange a display. Alina nodded slowly. Just a little. She hesitated today. Miriam's eyes glimmered with interest. Good, she whispered. Even the strongest wall begins with a small crack. Outside the shop, the city moved as it always did. Cars honked. Vendors called out to customers. No one noticed that somewhere between a classroom desk and a shining beauty store, an invisible game had begun. A game where brilliance itself had become something that could be traded, stolen, or slowly drained away. Kamara was not careless. She had grown up learning to pay attention to small details. Her mother had always taught her to trust her instincts. Over the next few days, Kamara began noticing something strange. Whenever Alina stood very close to her, a strange heaviness filled her thoughts. Her concentration weakened slightly, as if something was quietly pulling at her mind. During lunch break one afternoon, Kamara watched Alina from across the cafeteria. The girl was laughing with classmates, bright and confident as always. Yet something about her felt different now. Kamara could not explain it clearly, but there was a quiet tension beneath Alina's perfect smile. For the first time, Kamara began wondering whether their rivalry was truly ordinary. Back at the hair store, Miriam opened a locked drawer beneath the counter. Inside were small pieces of paper, names written neatly in ink. Each name belonged to someone who had once been bright, confident, talented. Customers, students, competitors. People who had unknowingly exchanged a small piece of their future for Miriam's generosity. Miriam touched the paper gently. Kamara, she whispered. Soon your name will join them. But that night, Alina felt uneasy. She lay on her bed staring at the ceiling while the city's noise drifted faintly through the window. For years she had believed her brilliance was truly hers. Now she understood something different. Part of her success came from the quiet trades her mother arranged. And for the first time, a small question entered her heart. Was she truly the most brilliant, or simply the most protected? At school, the teacher had begun noticing the competition between the two girls. Their answers were often the fastest and most accurate in class. But recently something had shifted. Kamara occasionally paused longer than before, while Alina seemed more confident than ever. The teacher watched both students closely, unaware that the change had nothing to do with ordinary study habits. Another week passed. During a science presentation, Kamara stood in front of the class explaining a complex experiment. Her explanation started perfectly, but midway through her speech, her thoughts briefly tangled again. She recovered quickly, but Alina saw it. The crack in Kamara's brilliance was widening. When Alina returned home that afternoon, Miriam could already see the answer on her daughter's face. It's working, Miriam said quietly. Alina nodded. For a moment, mother and daughter shared a silent understanding, one built on years of secret victories. But Komara's mind was not weakening as quickly as Miriam expected. Instead, Komara began remembering small details. Moments when Alina stood unusually close. Moments when strange fatigue followed. And suddenly, she remembered the rejected gift. Her mother's warning echoed in her mind again. Komara decided to watch carefully. She did not confront Alina. She did not accuse anyone. Instead, she began observing quietly, just as Alina had once observed her. Every conversation, every classroom moment, every subtle glance, Komara studied them all. One afternoon during study hour, Komara deliberately moved her seat further away from Alina. Something interesting happened. Her concentration felt clearer again. Her thoughts flowed smoothly as she solved problems with ease. Komara's suspicion deepened. Meanwhile, Miriam felt certain victory was near. She had practiced her strange exchanges for many years. No one had ever resisted them for long. Soon Komara's brilliance would fade completely, just like the others before her. And Alina would remain the shining star of the school. But the following week brought unexpected news. The teacher announced a major academic competition between several schools in the city. Only the brightest students would represent their classes. 2 names were immediately chosen: Alina and Komara. The competition would take place in front of teachers, parents, and education officials from across the city. It would be a stage where true intelligence could not hide. A stage where brilliance would be tested under pressure. And suddenly, Miriam realized something troubling. If Komara continued resisting the invisible exchanges, the competition could expose something Miriam had carefully hidden for years. A public stage meant many eyes watching. Too many eyes. That evening, Miriam called Alina into the quiet office behind the hair store. Her voice was calm but firm. The competition must not allow Komara to shine, she said. Alina looked uncertain. But what if she does? She asked softly. Miriam leaned closer. Then we take everything. The days before the competition passed quickly. Students prepared. Teachers organized schedules. The city school buzzed with excitement. But beneath the ordinary preparation, 2 silent battles were unfolding. One girl trying to protect her brilliance. Another girl trying to claim it. The day of the city academic competition arrived, and the large hall buzzed with excitement. Students from different schools filled the seats, teachers moved around organizing papers, and a panel of judges sat quietly at the front. Bright sunlight streamed through the tall windows, making the room feel open and tense at the same time. Alina and Komara sat beside each other at the contestant table. Alina looked calm, but inside her heart was racing. Miriam sat among the audience, watching closely. Komara held her pen with steady hands, reminding herself of her mother's words, "Your mind is your greatest treasure. Guard it carefully." The competition began, and the first question appeared on the screen. The first round was mathematics. Both girls answered quickly and correctly. The judges nodded with approval as the scores appeared on the board. The hall murmured with admiration. It was clear that the 2 brightest students in the room were sitting side by side. But as the questions became harder, something surprising happened. Komara's mind felt clear and strong. She had kept her distance from Alina all morning, and the strange heaviness she once felt was completely gone. Her answers flowed easily, and her confidence grew with every question. Meanwhile, Alina began to feel something she had never felt before: uncertainty. During the final round, the judges asked a question so difficult that the entire hall became silent. Alina stared at the paper, her mind searching for the answer, but nothing came. For years she had relied on the quiet advantage her mother's gift created. Without it, the problem felt unfamiliar and confusing. Komara raised her hand calmly and explained the solution step by step. The judges listened carefully before announcing that her answer was correct. The hall erupted in applause. Komara had won the competition. Miriam sat frozen in her seat, realizing that the invisible advantage she had built for years had finally failed. After the competition ended, Alina walked slowly outside the hall. The afternoon sun warmed the courtyard, but her heart felt heavy. For the first time, she understood something painful. The brilliance everyone admired had never fully belonged to her. Kamara approached her quietly. There was no anger in her voice when she spoke. "You are still smart," she said gently. "But real intelligence grows when we learn honestly." Alina lowered her head, feeling both shame and relief. The crown she had worn for so long had finally fallen, but it had also freed her from a burden she never understood. Back at the hair store, Miriam stood among her shining products, staring at the rows of luxury hair that had built her fortune. For years she believed success meant winning at any cost. But now the price of that victory had become clear. Her daughter had grown up believing she needed help to shine. Weeks later, Miriam closed the secret drawer where the names were kept and never opened it again. Alina returned to school determined to study honestly, even if it meant sometimes standing second instead of first. Kamara continued to shine with quiet confidence, proving that true brilliance cannot be stolen or traded. And across the busy city, people continued chasing success as they always had. But the story of Alina and Kamara slowly spread among students as a lesson. A crown built on borrowed brilliance will always fall. But a mind built on truth will shine forever. Morals. True success cannot be borrowed, bought, or stolen. Real brilliance grows through honesty, hard work, and integrity. When success is earned, confidence becomes unshakable.